Hey friends, it's Christy. I'm so excited to be back with you on the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the Best Friends in the Universe stamp set, and I'm actually going to start with my background today since it needs some time to dry. So I'm going to be creating a galaxy background. So the first step is to add some bright pops of color. I'm using Distress Oxide ink in Squeeze Lemonade. And then I'm going to bring in some peacock feathers as well. And I'm just putting down some large circular shapes, really no rhyme or reason. And then the third shade I'm going to add is Candied Apple. And I'm going to basically cover in all of the white space that remains pretty much there. And now I can begin to darken this up and really turn it into a galaxy by adding some chipped sapphire all around the edges. And I know this might look quite strange right now, but just trust me, galaxy backgrounds always look kind of bizarre until they just start to come together. So I'm deepening up the outside edges first with that chipped sapphire. And like I mentioned, I just used a piece of scrap paper to keep my fingers from getting too inky. And then I'm going to bring some of that color onto the inside of the card and cover up some of that bright space, so it'll just be kind of showing through in little spots and patches. And then I'm really going to darken things up by adding in some black soot. And this time I am just going around the outside edges to kind of create like a vignette. Then I'm going to grab my distress sprayer and spritz on some water droplets, and that's going to bring some of those brighter colors back to the surface and also lift some of that pigment off and give me some white spots as I dab that up with a paper towel. I did that twice, and then I also used some Perfect Pearls that I have watered down in a little mister bottle mixed with water, and that's going to give me some nice shimmer. Then I took each of those background colors that I used and just added a little bit of that to my work surface, watered it down, and did some splatter effect. Because, you know, galaxies, there's lots of color going on and lots of interesting little details. So I just really wanted to have lots of variety here. And I also wanted to give you guys some different ideas of things that you can do. So you definitely don't have to do all of the things that I used on this galaxy, but just a few of them are going to make a really cool background. I wanted some bigger droplets of that Perfect Pearls to give the card some shine when you tip it in the light. So I just added some of that powder to my work surface and watered that down. And then finally I'm going to add some Copic Opaque White and water that down as well, and then do a little bit more splatter detail. And this is going to be nice and bright white, so it's going to give me the effect of some stars, which is really going to finish off this galaxy panel. So I'll set this aside to dry and move on to my coloring. I'm going to begin with my astronaut, and for the skin I'm using E000, E00, and E11, and I'm adding some shadow right up under the hairline and down the sides of the face, because I figured that the mask would be casting a bit of a shadow there as well. And then I'm blending out with the E00, and I'm going to finish with the E000. And I started to add a little bit to the hand, but then I decided I wanted the astronaut to be wearing gloves, so I ended up not coloring that with the skin tones. Then I'm moving on to the hair, and I'm using E53, E55, and E57. I added a little bit of shadow on either side of each of those sections of hair, and then I'm pulling towards the center with the E55, and then I'll fill in the highlight with the E53. And this really could be a boy or a girl. You can only see a little bit of the hair, so you could make it whatever you want. For the spacesuit, I'm using C0 and C1, so I'm laying in my shadow with the C1 just wherever I think it should go to make the outfit look nice and rounded, so it's a little more three-dimensional. And then I will use the C0 to blend that out. That's going to be my mid-tone, and I'm going to soften that into the white, so the actual white paper is going to be the highlighted shade here. So just doing that little flicking motion so it just fades nicely. And then I wanted to do all of the little details on the spacesuit in a really bright pop of turquoise blue to match that background color that I used, that peacock feathers. So I'm using BG05, BG07, and BG09. So I laid in my shadows with the BG09 as my darkest, and then I'm going to blend that out with the BG07, and the BG05 is going to be my highlighted shade. These three markers are a fairly recent purchase for me, and I really enjoyed working with them. I thought they played so nice together. I wanted the gloves and boots to be black, so I used C3, C5, and C7. So I laid in some shadows with the C7 down at the base of the gloves and then in the little crease of the boots. And then I'm blending that out with the C5, and I'll finish with the C3. And I like this combo for black because I feel like it's just not quite as harsh as if you would use the black marker. I really wanted to try to have all of the colors in the background represented. So the next combo I'm going to use is red, and I'm using R22, R24, and R29. I'm going to color in the little flag and also the little lights on either side of the space helmet. So I use the R29 first, and then use the R24 as the mid-tone, and the R22 to blend that out. And I only use the two darkest colors on those little lights. And I also wanted to use the three planets, or the two planets and the moon, to accentuate the three background colors. So this first one I'm going to do in reds as well, but I am going to also add in the R20 because I wanted there to be a really nice fade from the dark side to the light side. So I'm blending from the bottom left corner, it's not really a corner because it's round, but the bottom left to the top right, getting lighter and lighter as I go. And then I colored in the three little dots with that R29. And then for the dog, I'm using E41, E42, and E43 for his body. So I'm laying in my shadows with that E43, just highlighting the outside edges mostly and giving him some shadow underneath his head. And then I'm going to blend that out with the E42. These colors transition from one to another very seamlessly, so you don't really even have to work too hard to get them to blend nicely. And then I will fill in all of the white space with that E41, with the exception of his ears and his muzzle. And for those, I'm actually going to pull in the E44. I wanted it to be just a shade darker. So I'm laying in those shadows on the outside edges of his ears and on the underside and up a little bit on the sides of his muzzle with that E44. And then I'm going to blend that out with the E43 as my midtone. There's a bit more difference between the E44 and the E43, so I'm just making sure to scrub over that line to break it up. And then I'll finish with the E42. I thought it would be fun to have a blue moon because it just takes me back to that song from like the 50s or whenever that was really popular. So I used BG01, BG02, and BG05, and then I ended up throwing in the BG000. And I also used the BG000 to outline the space mask for the dog, and I also did it on the astronaut as well. And then I colored in the craters of the moon with the BG07. And then for the other planet, I'm using Y11, Y13, Y15, and Y17. And this time I'm going from the bottom right to the top left. And I also colored my shooting star with those same shades. I added a little glare on the glass of the masks with a white gel pen and went over their eyes with a black gel pen. And then I trimmed these images out with the matching dyes. I wanted to create a frame for my background, so I used the A2 Stitch Rectangle Stacks Set 2 and the Elegant Frame Die-namics to cut down a piece of cement cardstock. And then I'm going to stamp a sentiment on the bottom using Extreme Black Hybrid ink. And I'm using the sentiment that says, "All systems are go for a happy birthday." Then I'm going to pop my card base in my MISTI, and again I'm using that cement gray cardstock, and this time I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says 321 launching the best day ever, and I also did the rocket and another planet and a little star. So now that I've got all my pieces together, I am ready to assemble. So I'm going to glue my galaxy background down to the card base. And then I have added some foam tape to the back of that frame. So I will peel off the release papers, and then I'm going to line that up in the center of the card and pop it down into place. It's going to give me just a sliver of that galaxy background showing through on the outside edges. And then of course that window. So now I can add my images. I'm tucking the feet of the astronaut into the right hand side there just to kind of create the illusion that the scene is continuing on. And then I added the little flag into his hand, and then I'll add the dog in the upper left, and then I'm going to add the planets around them. So I'm starting with the red planet, and I put that up at the top because I wanted it to be far away from the red flag to just spread that color out throughout the card. And I'm going to actually switch things up here after I added that yellow shooting star. I didn't want the yellow planet to be right next to it, so I just switched the position of the moon and the yellow planet. And then I did also just die cut and color a couple of those tiny stars off screen because I just wanted to fill in some of those spaces. So I added 3 of those to the background as well. And that is going to complete my card for today. There you can see all of that shine, and I'll give you another peek at the inside. I hope you guys enjoyed the July edition of Christy Gets Crafty with my favorite things. I had an absolute blast creating this one for you, pun totally intended. If you liked it, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below. I love interacting with you guys down there. And don't forget to subscribe to My Favorite Things for more inspiring videos just like these here on screen. Bye-bye.